Welcome, everybody, to another Microsoft Unboxed Pod. This is episode 59. I am your host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by
David Allen. Hope everybody's doing well. It's a Friday before holiday weekend if you're catching this on the recording day. So I hope everybody has a good holiday. And let's have a little fun about some tech before we totally kick the door down on Friday afternoon. What do you got for us?
Yeah, before we go into here in the States, the Memorial Day holiday, we actually had a week full of developer conferences. So anybody who has been flying home, I think as of yesterday or maybe today from either the Microsoft headquarters or Google's headquarters in Northern California, we'll be heading straight into a super short weekend. They might have went to work or whatever they're doing as a normal day for one day, and now they're going to get a 3-day holiday, which I think we all deserve. If you're not here in the States, take it anyway. Take Monday off. We're going to be talking about quite a bit. The FTC recently, I want to say as of about 24 hours ago, 36 hours ago, threw up their hands when it comes to trying to pull apart Microsoft and Activision. The bear hug between those two is too tight. They said enough's enough. We can't snuggle our way in. We give up. We'll also be talking about Windows 11's inbox apps. A couple of them are getting some updates, some feature testing via the dev channel and the Canary channel. Things like snipping tool, Paint, and Notepad, I believe. We're getting a couple of new tweaks via AI enhancements. GitHub, thanks to the developer conference that was announced at Build 2025, GitHub will welcome WSL, Windows Subsystem on Linux, I believe. Is that what it stands for? Is now becoming open source. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yep, that's just Windows Subsystem on Linux.
There we go. Becomes open source. Surprisingly, it wasn't before. I wonder why. Xbox is doubling down on Play Anywhere. We have some information about that and why it is becoming an even better value proposition to get Game Pass. We'll also be flying through GeForce now, getting a 40% discount over the next few days. So now's a good time to get that. And like I said, we'll be doing a developer conference roundup, which includes Google I/O announcements and Build 2025 announcements. And then we'll end with what we're doing over the next 3 days. If it's not gaming, maybe cooking. If it's not cooking, maybe it's just being outdoors. If it's not outdoors, maybe it's just 3 days of sleep. That all sounds great to me. Do you want to jump in with the first story, or do you want me to start off with the FTC? I think
go ahead and jump in with the FTC, and I'll pick you up right after that.
Sounds great. FTC officially dropped its bid on Wednesday. It dropped its bid to unwind Microsoft and Activision after about 2 years of saying, we're coming for you. They no longer are coming for Microsoft and Activision. Microsoft secured repeated legal victories in its federal court, which the FTC failed to prove that it was harmful that these two companies come together. Microsoft offered concessions as kind of a lead into this. We have a whole history of pods and discussions talking about this. We advise you guys to go listen to them or go to our website and read about it a little bit. But the long story short is that Microsoft knowing that the FTC was the last on its regulatory tour in order to get approvals, preempted a lot of the talking points the FTC would have had as far as the harm that could have been done by signing a bunch of 10-year deals with a bunch of companies saying, hey, we are going to promise to put our games on your guys' system. As a matter of fact, we're going to put our whole library from Activision Blizzard into basically a blind trust that we're going to have Ubisoft kind of manage and for the next 10 years. And we'll pay the company, even though we'll own it, we're going to pay the same amount that everyone else has to pay in order to license these games. That was their big play and the big strategy. The problem that the FTC had as far as showing harm, which they could have, is that they took Sony's talking points, and they were old talking points, and went with that. And Microsoft, like I said, had already preempted a lot of those talking points before it even met with the FTC. So they didn't really have a case at that point, and it kind of just spun out after that. They had some injunctions. They failed to meet any of those. So I think at this point, now that Lina Khan is out, who was kind of championing this big anti-monopoly systems for U.S. companies, is gone. We have a new administration, a new FTC chair. Seems like Microsoft can now wipe its hands of that and continue moving forward with the two companies. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we kind of knew this was coming. I think we had mentioned several pods ago that when the new administration took over and Trump took office, that we kind of thought once Lena Khan was gone that this would kind of go away. And I think, Activision and Microsoft and, letting Ubisoft control the licensing and Microsoft paying, a fair amount, just like everybody else, to license. I think that kind of eases some people's minds. I'm sure there's game developers out there that would, say, hey, let's just, wrap Microsoft up and just beat them up with sledgehammers, for what they've done. They've just, total. But I think so far we're seeing things go well. We've seen, Microsoft and PlayStation working together. We've seen more titles from Microsoft on PlayStation because that was part of it, because PlayStation was upset that it would cannibalize some of their console sales, because guess what? Call of Duty is the reason that a lot of people buy the PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5. So I think we're okay. I think we're a little bit deep for even, if they wanted to come after Microsoft. How many titles now have been released under the Microsoft umbrella since all this started? So hopefully everybody can play nice, simmer down, get along, shake hands, exchange some Benjamins, have some fun, drink some beer, play some games, and we're all happy.
Yeah, and again, this is all dependent on what Microsoft does going forward. This doesn't mean that they are ever out of the woods. If the FTC decides to, and Microsoft makes a bunch of mistakes, a bunch of bad calls, they could be under scrutiny again. This is basically to stop them from getting into the deal to begin with. 2 years down the road, it seems a little, far flung in that idea. But who knows? 5 years down the road, Microsoft might start making more monopolistic or anti-competitive decisions and choices, and we could be right back to the FTC saying, "Hey, time to pull you guys apart." Moving on to the next story, we have Windows 11 inbox apps getting another round of AI updates. That was something I tossed on here at the very end. This was something you can find this week if you are in the Windows 11 Insider Preview builds for the Canary Dev channel. Testers are able to test out more additions and more tweaks to Cocreator, which is the generative AI form of text prompting. They now support one-click background removal, which is something that was really big in, I believe, the Adobe for Photoshop introduced that about 5 months ago. It was a big deal to be able to kind of do that, because otherwise you had to manually kind of trace around whatever it is you wanted to crop it. Who knows how steady of a hand you had, depends on how awesome and how natural that background cutout was. This new one-click background removal is pretty awesome. Works fairly well, depending on shading and extra stuff you have in the background. But it is definitely a power feature to have when you're trying to save money and you don't want to do Adobe, or you don't want to use one of the other paid editing apps. The other thing you get is snipping tool. It's text action. You can copy text from screenshots, which is also pretty awesome. And quick redaction of sensitive info is being built in. Snipping tool it also got the same sort of UI that you're getting from if you were doing snipping tool on a Mac OS. The thing at the bottom that allows you to kind of crop stuff. The UI is starting to look very similar. So that's another win for people who are cross operating system compatible. Lastly, Notepad's getting contextual AI help for summaries, explanations, and rewriting text. I don't know if you're ever going to get the one-to-one Copilot being able to summarize code into natural language, so you can explain to your boss what exactly it is they're looking at and what you're working on. But the idea of getting contextual AI for summaries is huge for a lot of people, especially if you don't ever want to open up Word. If you're not a Word, you're not an Office 365 user, in that regard, you do everything through Notepad. Talking to you, Mary Jo, I'm sure you guys are spitting it with delight. What are your thoughts on these tweaks in AI?
I like to see it. And I think this is a slow progression to making the built-in Windows tools more useful, as you said, for people like us that would really prefer not to give Adobe that money every month. And I think the more they continue to add to these built-in tools, the Microsoft tools work well together. Well, I was thinking about it when we mentioned Paint a few weeks ago, and mentioned it again today, and Paint and WordPad and Notepad and all those that have been in Windows since Windows 3.1. When's the last time we saw those updated? It took getting AI to actually see those
It's been at least 10 years.
Get a real update, other than, oh, we changed the color of the title bar, or we changed the text. Now we're seeing these tools actually be useful. And I think about when I'm doing things, hey, I can open up Paint and I don't have to do it the Photoshop way or the, GIMP way. Let's not just pick on Photoshop here. I don't want to, throw Adobe, down the tube, but we just don't have to think about how to use those other tools. We can use our existing tools that are built into our operating system. It's about time. Thank you.
Oh, at $50 a month, I will kick them down an empty elevator shaft if I need to. Don't worry about throwing them under the bus. You hear that, Adobe? Lower your prices. The next story, I believe, is something that's near and dear to yourself. This is GitHub welcoming WSL.
Yes, this is kind of a big deal. I did not realize, first of all, it's the 10-year anniversary of WSL is coming up. For those that don't know, that's a Windows subsystem for Linux where you can install WSL from the Microsoft Store, and then you can pick your favorite Linux flavor, be it Ubuntu or Red Hat or any of the others, and you can install that. And when you open up your command prompt, you can go to the top and choose what version of Linux that you would like to run. You can get in there and you can run your apps, you can run your commands, you've got access to your editors, you can make your PHP scripts, you can even set up a fully fledged web server and database server if you so choose to on your PC. Now, why would somebody do this and why would this matter?
Because they're masochists.
Yes, well, Windows and Linux have always been at war. One's better than the other, or why use Linux or why use Windows? And over the last 10 years, that stance has really softened here. And that's kind of why we see WSL. And a lot of developers use it because you can test things on your local machine. A lot of network engineers use it. You can test, network connectivity with Linux on your local machine. You can write scripts. You can incorporate your AI into those scripts. And putting it here in GitHub and making it open source allows the people that use it, the developers that are in there every day and are on that command line, to get a hold of it and add to it, enhance it. In fact, I've already seen some enhancements in GitHub just browsing to see what folks are doing with it. It's already there. It's already being tinkered with. It's already being worked on. I'm glad this is still here. I'm glad Microsoft is embracing it, because this is one of those that I figured they would say, well, our developers over here, they don't use it enough. It's not something we need to maintain. And you might see it be like Paint, be one of those features that kind of goes to the wayside and doesn't get any updates. So, Microsoft has done a good thing here if you're a WSL user like myself.
Yeah, I got nothing to add to it. I think you explained it fairly well. We're going to move on to the Xbox doubling down on Play Anywhere. Yeah, I think you wrote about this week.
Yeah, this caught my attention. It was part of the May updates. There were a few games that came out, but really what caught my attention here was, if you look at the screenshot, for those that are viewing us on YouTube, for those that are listening, I'll do my best to explain it. If you open the Xbox app and you go down to cloud gaming, you choose your game and you click play, right? And the little airplane looking thing flies across while you make your connection, and then you go play. Well, Microsoft has been tinkering with partnering with GeForce Now over the last few months. If you're a GeForce Now member, you were able to link your Xbox account and your GeForce Now accounts together. And interestingly, GeForce Now has made itself an option in the Xbox app. So now if you have a subscription and you have your accounts linked, when you go to choose your cloud game, it's going to ask you, like the screenshot here, what platform do you want to play on? Do you want to play your game on GeForce Now? Or do you want to play your game on Xbox Cloud Gaming? Now, why would you want to do this? One, GeForce Now, your subscription plan kind of determines your quality of your game. Like, for example, the free plan, I think, is 1080p. There's a pro plan that is 1440p. And then there's a premium plan that is up to 4K and 240 hertz with DLSS turned on, RTX turned on, and all the features of an NVIDIA gaming system. So you kind of get to change your experience there right inside of the Xbox platform. And this kind of speaks to what Phil Spencer has just been hammering over the last 5 years. He wants gamers to be able to play anywhere via your handheld, via your console, via your PC, even your Mac, even your iPhone. I mean, these services do work on your Mac and on your iPhone. So I just thought it was a big deal that Microsoft has done their streaming, but they're allowing a third party to come in there and hook in there to give you options, to give you choices. And it just really speaks to Phil Spencer has said, the heck with hardware, the heck with branding. Let's just make it where play anything, anywhere. We're finally seeing that vision come true. And I know that's something we were talking about before we started here. I think you and I both are kind of seeing that play anywhere vision come to fruition. And I've got no complaints. And I really don't think you do either.
I don't. For those, again, who are listening, the screenshots show Oblivion is one of the game titles, South of Midnight, Expedition, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, and Blueprint. Two of the titles are Xbox exclusive that were announced during the Developer Direct conference back in late January, early February. That's South of Midnight and Expedition 33. One's a turn-based RPG, which I think believes is Clair Expedition. The animations and graphics look great. The story's about basically a curse upon these people that counts down every year and basically eliminates that generations of adults. So started off with, whatever, I think it was 40 or 42. And then, some magic creature writes 41, and anybody who's 41 years old disappears. They've gotten down to 33, and they're sending out a new crew so that people who are 32 don't have to worry about it next year. It's a very fun game, but it's just was recently released. I've been playing South of Midnight, which is a folklore fantasy action platformer / free roam kind of game based in the South. Really fun game. But again, I said all this to say that, again, Xbox is adding proposition by putting exclusives on these basically day one. No waiting. As soon as the game is released, you can start playing it. And I believe the same will be said was for Doom as well. Doom is out and available for those of you who want to play that on that. Moving on to our next topic, we have GeForce Now gets about a 40% discount just to entice people to play anywhere. You wrote about this one as well.
Yes, I did, because it's very rare that you see GeForce Now offer any type of discount.
I know. Who got talking to them?
Well, they're actually doing a pretty good deal. I think what they're trying to do is get you to heat your gaming up for summer, and that's kind of exactly what they're going to do, at least for me.
I mean, we got to get these people talking to the tariff people. Like they need to be out making deals.
Well, the good thing about it is, and part of my headline is missing here, so I'm filling in the gaps. One note didn't quite sink in everything perfectly, but from what I recall, it is the Pro plan. So keep that in mind. That gets you your 1440p gaming experience.
Correct.
It does not go as far as the 4K. So
that's in the ultimate, yeah.
Right. The 4K is in the ultimate. You do get the shorter, what they call queues, to get into your games, and I think it's still limited to 8 hours?
6 hours per session for the Pro.
6 hours per session and 100 hours a month. It's 6 hours for Pro, 8 hours for Ultimate, and up to 100 hours a month. And I think there's a 15-hour rollover that goes with that too, that you can roll 15 hours over for the next month. Now, you do have to commit to 6 months, and I believe 6 months is $48. So if you're looking to try out GeForce now and you've got, 1440p gaming is your thing, get in there and try it. I mean, it's $48 for 6 months. That breaks out to a little less than $10 a month. Get in there, try it. I have give it a go. It's a pretty cool experience, but keep in mind, you do have to have a fairly decent internet connection. So, don't go spend your money on a 5 meg DSL plan and go, hey, I want my money back. It doesn't work. You've got to have a pretty hefty internet connection to be able to do this. Your fibers, your cables. When I do it, just for you techies out there, 25, 30 megasecond, that'll kind of get you that experience, but make sure that's a solid 25 to 30 megasecond. Don't forget about your kids in the other room with their handhelds going, or your husband, wife, kids with their streaming going. That's going to pull against your internet connection. So, make sure you've got the bandwidth. Being hardwired does make a difference. It shaves a few milliseconds off. Those are just my tips for making sure you get a good experience. Go out there and try it. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of it. Love to get some feedback from you folks that's using some of these cloud gaming services.
Yeah. Again, summed it up pretty well. We can jump into the developer conference roundup. That's going to be the big chunk of our pod because we had two big ones. We had Microsoft start off on Tuesday with Build, the keynote, obviously led by Satya Nadella and executives in tow. The summation of that entire thing is that AIG is the next big pivot for a lot of people. But we're going to circle back to that because, again, we're a Microsoft podcast. So let's get what we consider the vegetables out of the way, which is Google I/O. Google I/O they opened their keynote on basically Microsoft's second day of keynote, which is Wednesday. They moved up. If you're wondering, like, hey, doesn't Google wait a week or two? They moved it up this time around this year. We don't know particularly for what reason, but other than competition, maybe vying for the same pool of developers' attention. Nevertheless, Google came out and their big thing was, I believe, let me make sure I get the exact title right for this thing. It was AI mode, and it's going to be applied to Google search. That was one of the biggest talking points of the developer conference. It's interesting to note that Copilot was already in Edge, but Google didn't have a dedicated area for Gemini. You had to go to the website, and then once you pulled up, or if you did a search, you'd get the little bracket. But now they are basically incorporated in the UI of the browser. You're not going to get a little icon that'll have a pop up. I talked about that in the write up about how the UI looks. I prefer that UI over the entire dedicated page window length panel that Microsoft dedicates. But it's all subjective. It's all visual preference. The other big take that they had was I think their new models of Gemini 2.5 Pro and 2.5 Flash. They were announced, and obviously Pro being the most powerful model, optimized for complex reasoning and coding. Again, they will do a lot of the think deeper kind of stuff that Copilot does, and it'll do a reasoning for why it presented the information it did, which again is great because that'll help people who at least are cursorily knowledgeable about the topic point out what's a hallucination, what's fake, what's incorrect right off the bat. If you know nothing about it, maybe you shouldn't be using AI to present anything. Again, to research, gain knowledge, that's one thing. To kind of present stuff, you would want to make sure that you know a little bit so that you can say, hey, nope, the AI is wrong on that. And that's where this reasoning comes into place. Gemini Live is another thing. That's a new AI assistant feature. It allows natural language conversation with Gemini using the phone's camera. So you basically just sort of what we did with Google Translate, but on steroids, essentially, start to point stuff and get a multitude of vector points of how the translations work and kind of interpret what they're seeing. So if there's a math problem, for some reason, someone graffitied it on the wall as a riddle, you can be able to figure that out with your phone camera. Again, agent mode in Gemini, which is an experimental feature coming that will allow people to simply describe an end goal. And again, they Google's also following Microsoft when it comes to AIG, basically agentic intelligence. And that means preemptively doing things on the user's behalf versus being forced to do something with a prompt. Typically how we've been dealing with AI is I ask it a question or I presented something and then it starts working. The way that a lot of these developer keynotes went and demos was we understand you based on a series of prompts that you've already fed us. We're going to start doing stuff before you even ask, and then storing it in, if and when you do ask for that thing. And if you ask us to do it routinely, we're just going to get ahead of it beforehand. So again, if you're someone who has to rewrite meeting notes, if the AI knows that you have a meeting and it ends every day at 1:45 and you start reading your notes at 1:50, 2 o'clock, and you present those to your people in your team or your executive or whatnot at around 2:30, it's going to start presenting or start drafting those notes and saying, hey, would you like to correct anything else on that? If not, I have access to your email. I'm going to start sending it off. These are all big things. I can go through a myriad of lists, but I want you to jump in real quick before we get to some of the hardware stuff and Android beta, because that's also very big.
I think this is a big deal, but it's also a little bit scary if you actually sit down and think about what you just said there for a minute. And when you wrote it, I read it, and we watched it together on the keynote when they had their keynote at Google I/O this week. I almost called Google's keynote build because they were both going on at the same time, but it was Google I/O. Mm-hmm. And I saw this, and I'm like, this is cool. And then I got thinking about it, and you just said it again. I think it's a good feature that AI can know what time it is and know what's supposed to happen and start doing these things and start asking you these questions, to kind of automate your workday. But I want to be kind of the devil's advocate for a minute here. Does it scare people that AI is starting to automate your workday? I mean, you're sending things out to your coworkers, you're sending out things to your employer. And I would get it that most people should check over what AI is going to send out and should actually read it to make sure things are correct. But we're all guilty. Once you use something for a little while, you start to trust it. And then what do you start to do? You start to read it a little less. You start to proofread it a little less. And next thing you know, you have sent that memo out that said the company is going to give you a bonus of $10,000 instead of $1,000. And, that's just a very simplistic example. But I think people could see also where this could get very quickly out of hand. I think it's good. I think this is the path. But people need, this is kind of my barrier. Be smart, folks. Check what AI is telling you. Remember, it's close to human. That's kind of the goal here, I think. The end goal is to be as close to human as possible. But it's just like a computer program. It's only as smart as the programmer, and it's only as smart as the inputs that you give it. So make sure these things are correct before you send your boss, or for the boss sending things to the employees. Make sure these things are correct, or you might get yourself in a little warm water.
Yeah, just think about these AIs are presented as time savers for a lot of people. Use some of that time that's being saved to, again, research this. Don't just assume, because otherwise you'll have a lot of free time when you're fired. So just keep that in mind. A little bit of time, a little bit of work of researching your own versus a lot of free time to dwell on the mistakes you made. Some other things that were announced, again, big, was that they brought back Beam. And I guess that is their new communications platform. It's partnered hardware this time around with, who is it? Is it HP? I think it's HP for virtual conferences. So again, for whatever reason, companies think we really want to talk virtually to each other when we don't even want to talk to each other face to face or over the phone, but they're going to keep pushing at it. They brought it back. It looks really cool with what looks like a modified Kinect. You're able to kind of sit in front of people and do a 3D, visualization of that person in the room with you. That was another big announcement. They don't have any specific dates on when this is going to be available. I wrote a very cynical piece about this because this is a communications platform, and we know what Google does with communications platform. So if you're willing to invest some money in it to have a cool thing for a couple of months, maybe a year or so, that's great for you. Just understand you'll still be sitting in a room by yourself talking to people that you could have probably just went down the hallway to talk to. What are your thoughts on that before I move on to another piece of hardware?
What was the name of that game service again?
I think it's Beam. Yeah.
No. What was the name of the game service, the streaming service that they canned?
Oh, Stadia. Your favorite punching bag.
I think this is where this will lead to.
Yeah, I see that. I see it as well.
I just don't see this. I just don't see this being adopted, and we keep coming up with these ways to put people on the screen. We're doing it here. Kareem and I are not in the same office. We're up on a screen.
Spoiler alert! Jeez.
We're up on a screen and we're doing this for you guys. And Google's got a different way to do it. And then Microsoft a couple years ago tried to do the avatars. Where you could put yourself on the screen as an avatar. Okay, we're gonna have these teleconferences. I get it. Have them put a background up. A little bit of lighting, call it a day. If it's somebody that you can talk to in your office, walk down the hall, go up the stairs, up the elevator, down the stairs, down the elevator, talk to these people, share expressions. As we like to say at the end of a podcast, share the expression. Maybe go outside at a table, smell some grass, have some meeting. I just don't see this lasting. I just don't.
It probably won't, and I don't want to minimize the engineering that went into this because they're using some really impressive tech in order to get these visualizations as 3D and as lifelike as possible. I suggest you guys go check out. The Verge has a good video on this. I want to say it's about maybe 10 minutes long, where they talk to the developers. They go behind the scenes to speak with the engineers. You get to see the tech that's built into these cameras in order to get this advanced LiDAR system going and stuff like that. So go check it out. But I have my doubts that this is going to catch on in a way that I think we've established what is necessary, bare minimum, for a virtual meeting. And most people will just meet that because at the end of the day, nobody likes a meeting. Anybody who likes a meeting is a sociopath, and they're usually an executive, someone who doesn't get to hang out with other people.
Somebody who needs a social life. So what we're telling you here is talk to your employees, talk to your friends, talk to your coworkers, have a social life.
Bingo. The other big hardware update was, drumroll, Google Glass is back in a much more palatable way. Google is trying its hand once again at glasses that use a little bit of augmented reality. I think it's called Project Aura, is Google's forthcoming smart glasses, which uses the Android XR platform to basically provide a little bit of AI and a little bit of what is it called? Digital projections into the glasses. I think they are partnering with make sure I get the right name for this, X-Real. And the X-Real is making the glasses themselves. The reason why I found this notable is because it's in contrast, when that's what I wrote about, to the Vision Pro. And it sounds like, from some recent news that was making some headlines today, that Google canned a project where they were working on a camera on their watches to basically focus on glasses. We haven't heard much about the Vision Pro in the last 2 years, it feels like, because I feel like the idea of AI being part of the augmentation versus the leaning heavily on digital visualization, generated digital visualizations, just having AI speak to you through bone conducting glasses and things like that, with a little bit of it in the corner of your screen, is probably the best we're going to get for a while. And it's the most promising, I think, the one that's most natural for people to have these glasses, again, that are see-through, that can be interactive with the world around you, that don't inhibit you in any particular way, that aren't dependent on a bunch of, like I said, digital bunch of digital graphics in order to relay information. You can just get that through the sensors or through your own voice to these tools or whatnot. So again, I wrote this because it seems like for all the hay that was made about the Vision Pro and its fidelity and basically doing that, the paradigm of throwing a screen of a traditional desktop in front of you, and that's where it kind of excelled, seems outdated. And it was outdated when Apple was doing it. It was outdated a little bit towards the end of the HoloLens development, stuff like that. I think where we're going towards is more of these, here's a little corner in your glasses that will give you a little heads up information. But for the most part, you're getting relayed audibly through these glasses, and it's using AI, servers and data centers packed full of information to give you in the moment information that you can act upon because you're interacting with the world around you. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna take two paths here. One, I think it's awesome to see the glasses come back. I thought about the Meta glasses.
You were a glasshole, weren't you?
But I would love to just try a pair of these glasses or pair the smart glasses in general, just to see what it's like. But I do have a concern here because, I've got my smartwatch here. I've got my smartphone over here. I've got my laptop, of course, in front of me. And, we were just talking about in the story before being social, touching people, having conversations, shaking hands, that type of thing. And I get it. People want to be connected. But I feel like people are going to buy these glasses. Nothing against the glasses. I'm thinking about the experience. The glasses themselves, when they come out, they may be great. But people are going to be putting these on, seeing those Google notifications come up, maybe possibly seeing those social media notifications come up, which is either going to put them in a position where they feel like they have to react right now to that notification or that prompt, can they react on the glasses? We'll have to wait and see, how well that works. Or do they, reach for their phone and start, reacting to that notification that they saw in the glasses right there? Or are we going to enter a world where everybody's wearing glasses, just like everybody's carrying a smartphone, and a lot of people are wearing smartwatches? Not everybody, but a lot of people are. Are we entering a world where everybody's got a pair of glasses, everybody's got a smartwatch, everybody's got a smartphone because I've got to stay connected? And I hate to say it, to me, that makes the world feel like it's artificial in a way. I'm not sure artificial is the right word I'm looking for right here, but man, artificial in a way, and it feels like we're suddenly living the Jetsons. It feels like we're suddenly living in a Jetsons world. Whereas if I lived close enough to Kareem and I needed something or needed to see him about something, I would love to go to his office and, have a beer with him, have a meal, have that conversation, or, go to a Lakers game, and have that social interaction. And I feel like the more we keep putting on our bodies and the more we keep putting in front of us, it becomes information overload. And, we're already seeing people sitting at a Lakers game with $1,000 tickets, but they're pulling out their phone during the game because they feel like they've got to do that. And that bothers me about the more we continue to put on our bodies and put information. Now I'm going to be walking through Walmart doing my grocery shopping, and these notifications are going to come up. I get it, but I'm not sure how I feel about it. Now, yes, I've not tried a pair of the Meta glasses yet, which are the popular, seem to be moderately successful smart glasses that are out right now. Maybe I spend that $300 and put them on my face and go, hey, I can't live without these things. I can't wait to see what Google does. But now I'm a little concerned about it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely agreeing with you on that. I'm going to try and be a little bit more optimistic, at least as far as what I think the vision is for these. And again, I'm not saying this is even going to be possible because I feel like we're in the apex of the smartphone computer engagement paradigm. Just like we were with desktops and laptops, there was a certain, you go home and dial up and you'd hear that sound and you knew you were hopping on the internet, and that was where it was at. And that's how we interacted with the world around us. We got information fed to us through that screen. The idea of glasses is to replace the 7 to 8 inch screen in your hand with the 2 screens, glasses in front of you. That's always been the vision. I think that's what Apple went with the Vision Pro. They're like, we're going to put a great, impressive, high fidelity screen in your face. The only problem is they cut everything else off around you. The idea, again, depending on how you use your phone, a lot of people use their phone to, scroll social media, to get news, to get information, to do things, access bank accounts, or use an app to do certain things. If we can start offloading a lot of those visual interactions with audible interactions that make sense, that work just as well as touch does, and visually seeing it, then I think we could be in an okay place. Like you had the example of a basketball game. Imagine if the idea is to be at the basketball game and capture the basketball game to then post later on social media, which a lot of people do. That's why you see the phones up, in front of people, to record the game, to do selfies, things like that. The one thing that the Meta Ray-Bans have is that they can take pictures. If the idea is to say, hey, I just watched, what's his name? Curry ball out, and he's gone. He's going for 40 of this game, and I'm recording his 40th shot on my glasses, and I'm saying, you know what? Post this with the caption, "Great time, glad to make history," whatever, on the glasses themselves, and they can go process that. They do it offline. Off the device itself, they process it somewhere in the cloud, but it's posted. I didn't have to look at my phone. I didn't have to touch it. I didn't have to take my eyes off from the game to then make the post. I can just say it and do it with the glasses on. And that's, I think, where a lot of these developers are hoping we go for. We have to break that idea of I need to have the phone in my hand. The same thing for saying loading your body up with tech. You have these smartwatches, glasses. If the idea is that the watches can feed you the same information your watch does, saying like, hey, your heart rate's this, you've walked this many steps so far, you have this to your goal, you've eaten this many things, you've burned this many calories, just telling you all this. And you can act upon it without ever having to look down at your wrist again, because you're being fed that every hour or whatever. At the same time it tells you to stand up, it gives you a listing of all the things you've accomplished so far in your watch. And it, is speaking the notifications to you. You can be like, pass, don't need to know that. That's the paradigm that they're trying to break. The idea of looking down at another screen, it's just listening to it and having AI kind of do things, again, AIG, on your behalf, just either through voice or through knowing, like, hey, I know that Kareem is at a restaurant, he's looking at food, he just took a picture of it. Would you like me to post this to Instagram? Because you like posting to Instagram your food. I don't personally, but a lot of people do. I think that's the idea. That's the optimistic view of it. But I am concerned, just like you are, about us in the transition of having the phone, the glasses, and the watch, and not knowing what to do with any of those, and not breaking our behavior with those at all, and just kind of adding more and more and more versus figuring out like what's necessary.
Well, it kind of ties itself all together in my eyes, where you've got AI and the glasses, and the smartwatches and the phones, and we're already, Microsoft has mentioned it, Google has mentioned it, Apple doesn't know what they're going to do with AI, and I think this is part of the reason why. We're trying to change what we have fundamentally done for the last 2 decades. And it took us a long time to get from pen and pencil to keyboard to typing your, English essay in high school. It took us longer to get from typing that essay in high school to making that lovely modem noise that you were talking about, to get online to do research in basic text and low resolution graphics. And I think, I don't know how much of this transformation we will see in mine and your lifetimes, but our kids and our grandkids are going to see this transformation. When our kids and our grandkids grow up in this transformation, it becomes easier.
Definitely.
So I'm looking at it for them. You and I think, unfortunately, buddy, we're stuck to these keyboards. Hey. I don't know that we're going to be walking around the grocery store with a headset on, or even glasses for that matter. but I think the next generation certainly will, because that's going to be, what they're brought up on.
Hey, and I'm A-okay with that. I have no FOMO when it comes to that kind of stuff. I hope my daughters, and if I have lucky enough to have grandkids, they take off with that and they tell me that I'm old and useless and I'm cool with that. I think there's a time and place for every generation to hand off technology to the next.
Dad, you used a device in your hand? What was that?
I know. You're such an animal. Do you know how dirty your hands get? Those kind of things. Anyway, a few other things that were more on the technical side that was released, and then we'll hop on to what Microsoft did, which is we got Vero 3 and Flow, which are Google's new text to video. That's another thing, because we got text to create music, text to create generative art. Now we're getting some AI video generating tools to help filmmakers, hopefully not replace them, just help them. And then we got the Android Studio and a machine learning kit, which again for developers is going to be huge. Bringing some new APIs for Gemini Nano for on-device AI tasks. Again, localizing things, which is for anybody who's in a rural area that wants access to AI, you don't necessarily need to have bandwidth or anything like that. You can still get the benefits of AI. That was that was from some of the stuff from Google. Now we're going to move on to Microsoft's build. And I'm going to try to skip all the things that are kind of repetitive, because again, they both talked about very similar things. They presented them obviously in different ways to
competition.
Yeah, a lot of what Google, and I'm starting to, I appreciate both. I've always been a Windows fan and stuff like that, but Google is at least explaining the story of AI to consumers, even though it's a developer conference. Microsoft has forgone any of that. And they're like, hey, developers, we're talking straight to you, which again, their prerogative. It's a developer conference. I know that it makes sense. But for anybody watching that's a consumer, you are no longer the audience for this. I think this is where they push off all the Windows updates to like the fall, where that's where they talk directly to people. But I do appreciate that Google's still keeping a foot in, hey, humans need to use this stuff. And when I say humans, I mean the average dullard like myself. And then developers also need to know what's coming down the line. And I thought that's what all the sessions were for. I'm rambling. Anyway, Microsoft announced, I believe, at Build, the multi-agent system, which is all about building and orchestrating multiple AI agents that can work together. So developers can start tying together their agents to do different tasks across a bunch of different platforms. Like we said, there was GitHub Copilot as a peer programmer. It's a huge leap. Google Copilot is evolving from mere code helping to a true collaborator. The new GitHub Copilot agent can actually take on development tasks for writing code and running tests and drafting pull requests. So, you can send it off to do a lot of the heavy work while you go for a swim in the pool, get back, dry off, come home, come back in the house, have a snack, and say, all right, how well did you do? Again, always check your work. But that could save you a lot of time. The Open Agentic Web with NL Web, Microsoft unveiled NL Web. Again, it's an open source project aiming to be the HTML for the Agentic Web. That's been the big push, is again having these things proactively work for you. The other huge thing was the Azure AI Foundry, and this was paired with the announcement of Grok being folded in. Again, it's not the only model, but it was the one that took front and center at the event where they spoke, I think, or they let Elon speak for about 3 minutes or so. Satya Nadella was telling about it. I wrote that I'm very skeptical about involving Grok at all, either for personal reasons or just the fact that it had a huge issue last week about misinformation about a white genocide in South Africa. Elon didn't admit to the mistake, but did say that, the AI model will make mistakes and they will fix them quickly. As a company that works for corporations that need security, that needs accuracy, that needs productivity on a different level, I don't know if you necessarily want to include a model that is knowingly going to make mistakes, even though you're going to fix them. And I know that the reality is that most of these models make mistakes and they get fixed very quickly. But this one was pretty big. And again, and these deals have probably been made months, years in advance. I don't know if Microsoft's going to champion Grok as much as just involve it in the fold. I forget let me see if I can grab the notes for the other models that are going to be included. Make sure I give you guys all the information. I apologize. I will look for those and add those in the show notes. But anyway, again, Grok was just the most highlighted one, but there will be some other models added to this. And this is, again, all about Microsoft expanding and not leaning so heavily on OpenAI. The other thing that was mentioned, I believe, is AI in Windows. Like we said, we talked about some of the inbox apps that they're adding, but they are planning to have quite a few AI developments for the fall. They didn't go into detail about those, at least not at the keynote, but there were some sessions that revealed that they're going to start having a handoff system in place. I don't know for which apps, but they demoed and showcased at least Spotify doing it. But it's basically, if you're on your phone doing something, you can pick right up from your phone on your Windows device. I don't know if it's going to go through Windows Link or Phone Link, or if it's going to be something that's built into Windows itself. And if this is going to be using the UWP/PWA paradigm to say, hey, we can connect anything that's a web app, because it operates roughly the same on an Android phone, on an iOS phone, as it does on a Windows machine. Because again, there aren't a lot of UWP apps on any phone ever, anywhere. So I don't know if they're going to have control over that. But if they can get enough PWAs, this could be a pretty cool handoff feature to be like, hey, I was using my banking app on my phone. I needed to actually get my account information that I didn't have on me, or I need to, get some transcripts, or I need to print out something that's on my computer. Let me just pick right back up from where I was on my phone versus having to go to the specific website, do my whole login all over again, and a bunch of other, unnecessary steps. So those are some of the big things from Windows. I know it sounds like we ran through those faster than we did Google, but like I said, a lot of it was double effort, essentially. Like I said, they talked about the same things. What are your thoughts on Microsoft's overall pivot towards, hey, it's no longer just having AI, it's about making AI start doing stuff and working with other apps or connecting itself?
It's part of the evolution. And, I think we need to make a statement here that I think for both of these conferences, I expected I expected something I didn't get, I guess. And we've talked about money. We've talked about these investments, these investors are making and how they're going to get their money back. I didn't see either company back off of AI. If anything, I saw them plow forward, as we're mentioning here, working on integrations and partnerships and working together. And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to start to see the Instacarts of the world pick this up, the DoorDash of the world pick this up. We're going to start to see, email pick this up even more than it already has. We talked about it in a story earlier. Microsoft is going to continue to interweave these things into Office 365 and your 365 membership. But when they're doing that, they're going to bump that price up a few dollars to make those investors happy, to give them, back what they're looking for. I think it's a mistake from Microsoft to be sending the message to the developers that, hey, we're talking to you. I think a lot of people look at Microsoft as a consumer-based company, and I think consumers need to hear from Microsoft, hey, there's this thing out there called AI, and it's pretty awesome, and it can make your life a lot easier. Here's some of the things you can do with it while you're on that Windows Snapdragon PC that we just told you about last week, and we can just get you this whole package here. All you need to do is go buy one of these new affordable Surface products that we showed you last week, powered by the Snapdragon Plus processor, and everybody wins. And I just don't see, as you mentioned, I just don't see Microsoft doing that. They're feeding it to the developers and then telling the developer to go market their product, and Google is kind of doing it the other way. They're explaining this out a little bit better. At least it feels like to me they're explaining it out a little better. And I'm worried about what is next for Microsoft. When they've done all these integrations, how do they explain this to people that, hey, this is what we can do now?
I mean, we've always at least explained here on this podcast that Microsoft obviously is speaking to businesses who have a little more aptitude for what we're discussing here. On that note, here's a couple more headlines, or at least information I'm going to kind of wrap this section up with. Microsoft is integrating prompt shields to protect against jailbreaks and injection attacks, which is huge because a lot of spam is coming through AI. Microsoft Defender for the Cloud will provide real-time security recommendations, reinforcing Azure protections, especially the ones that are put in by your admin. There's also a thing called Digital Twin Builder in Microsoft Fabric. It's a new capability within real-time intelligence, and it's now in preview. The tool simplifies the process of creating and managing digital representations of real-world environments, enabling organizations to make more informed decisions. So you can basically do a lot of virtualization and text or testing through these things. And you can do it with no or low-code interfaces. So again, if you're not a developer yourself or you can't afford one, these are some kind of things you can get off the ground if you know the bare minimum about it. It'll allow you to connect stuff like mapping and physical assets and processing those systems. Scaling will also be a thing that this does as well. They also managed to talk about Microsoft SQL Server 2025. Again, that was mentioned. It's in preview right now, and people can kind of get their hands on it, test out advanced semantic search for Gen AI applications, native JSON support, and REST API integrations, support for Microsoft Intra ID, managed identities, zero ETL real-time analytics, and OneLake mirroring. Microsoft also announced global secondary index in Microsoft Azure Cosmos DB. If you know what any of those words mean, please let me know. Go ahead.
That's something I want to mention. And if you want to go to the end, or I'll mention it now. Programmers are great, but programmers have had to learn about AI just like everybody else and how to implement. Does anybody out there feel like there's an AI tool overload? Like you don't know what does what and how, things integrate together. I mean, I'm even looking at it from a developer's point of view. Everybody's throwing out these buzzwords. Microsoft's got Fabric over here. They've got this over here. Well, it almost feels like I need a new education to be able to develop this platform.
That's when you ask AI, what the hell am I doing? What do these words mean these days? You'll get an answer. It might not be the right answer, but you'll get an answer. There's also, like I said, some of the highlights that they mentioned for this Microsoft Azure Cosmos DB is auto-scale throughput, easy index creation via the Azure portal, and enhanced hybrid search capabilities. We already talked about GitHub. One other thing, again, for those of you I had mentioned earlier, OneLake. It's unifying enterprise data, which is expanding with shortcut transformations, helping customers virtualize and transform data without duplication. That was also announced. And again, it's all for CRM-based kind of stuff as well. Lastly, they talked about, let me make sure I get this all correct before we head into the weekend, which I'm itching to do. We'd already talked about the AI Foundry, but within that was a bunch of other announcements like future hardware-proof adaptation, simplified deployment, Windows machine learning, which we found in the Windows Foundry, seamless access to open source models through with Foundry Local, a rich catalog of OSS models, which is in preview right now if you want to try that out, command line interface. And then there's ready-to-use on-device APIs that they're going to be rolling out slowly. And then they're talking about the models that will be basically engineered and designed to work on specific silicon, which is the LoRa, I believe, LoRa for Silica. And it's being previewed on Snapdragon X series MPUs. It should be coming soon to Intel and AMD. Obviously, it's going to be all the stuff for the MPU stuff, not older Intel and AMD models. There's low-rig adaptation for LoRa as well. And then they're going to be doing stuff like enhancing app discoverability and agent interactions. They talk about the Microsoft Store being part of the initiative to help with this as well. They're going to be boosting developer productivity with tooling improvements, to your point, a lot more tools. Hopefully people who are developing know what they mean and how they can use them. Stuff like WinGit configuration, obviously WSL, advanced Windows settings, which is currently in Windows Preview, Insider Previews, Command Palette and Power Toys, and Edit, the new command line text editor with Windows. And then they talk about the future of development, putting more AI into your specific apps, and basically injecting it automatically. You kind of just tell the AI what it is you want your app to start incorporating and doing automatically. And with some of these new tools, it'll be able to just write the code, inject it in there, and you can run tests for it. It'll run tests while you're out at the pool. You can come back and be like, oh, these tests are great. Load it, run it in your own environment. Again, double check, run it in your own environment just to make sure. And then once it's all said and done, you might have saved yourself 2 or 3 hours, and you're already off to the races with a new app that has new capabilities. That all said, we'll have to wait, obviously, to see a lot of this come out. I think, we had promised you Android beta information. I know, there's no Windows Phone, so the next best thing for a lot of us Windows users is what happens in Android. And we got major visual overhauls. A lot of this, I had mentioned to a partner here, that it looks like they are refining a lot of that visual material use stuff. It's a lot less rounded and bubbly and a lot less open space. They're starting to compact some of that space, not in a bad way, but in a pretty decent way. They are meeting Samsung, sort of. I think the two companies are edging towards a design UI that'll benefit most Android users in the long run. Samsung's UI is very dense, very packed full of stuff. Material UI for the longest had, you can get just the widget profile. You can stack widgets in Samsung, which again, it could be information overload for a lot of people, too dense. But in Android, you can't stack anything. A lot of the widgets take up a lot of space visually, even though they don't use a lot of that space very well. They're starting to refine a lot of that. There's some system-wide changes, like the notification pane, which again has different new animations and a little more bubbly and snappy stuff. The quick settings has changed. Lock screen getting a few new additions to make it customize and personalize it for yourself. The launcher is getting a few more additions, and like I said, the settings menu. The adaptive design, Google is saying it's focusing on building a single mobile app that works seamlessly across various form factors. So again, it's still been the goal 7-9 years into this project to be like, hey, you make one app and it can actively figure out where to put information to fill the screen or fill whatever visual you're using it for. There's some on-device AL and machine learning kits that they're going to be handing out in order to get even more power. Who knows what the Tensor G5, I think is the one that Ron is going to be using. But again, you might be able to localize a lot of your AI stuff and never even need to connect to the internet in order to get a lot of these great, photo editing benefits, video editing benefits, things like that. They're getting more powerful models. Like I said, we are already seeing Gemini 2.5 Mini and Live and Flash kind of be tested on some of these devices. There's Gemini and Android Studios, which again, you can start to get more features for photo editing, video editing, and easier testing. Last thing I want to add, again, these are a lot of developer stuff that they're going to be offering, is that it is in beta currently. I have it on my phone. You can, as of the conference wrap up on Wednesday, if you have a Pixel device, I believe it goes back all the way to the 6. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's 6 and later. You can all start loading that on there if you want to opt into the beta program. Just be careful, know what you're doing. That if it's a backup phone or a phone that you only use for specific things, join the beta program. If you use your phone regularly and can't do without it for half an hour or a few hours, if it crashes or breaks and you need to fix it, I don't suggest doing that. That being said, weekend plans, my friend. Let's get people the hell out of here.
Let's have some fun so we can have some fun too. So here's what I've got in mind. I've got a review I've got to finish. I'm kind of holding myself to that since we've got an extra day to get it done. And I do want to bring up, something we didn't mention. Thank you to our veterans out there that have sacrificed that. They're the reason that we have this holiday. I would like to, anybody that has served our country, defended our country, first responders, or anything in that relation, thank you for what you do. It's because of you that we get to sit here and do this podcast. But for fun, I will be, guess what? Legion Go. It will be in my hands. hopefully a lot this weekend. I have kind of gotten back into Starfield. I kind of tinkered with that one when Microsoft first announced it last year and really didn't dive in. But something we were talking about off mic is the handheld means that you can do it anywhere. You just turn it on and go. You don't have to worry about your controller charging or anything like that. And I have really found myself getting on the couch or even in bed at night, kind of giving Starfield and things like that a little go. I don't play as much Call of Duty as I used to because I'm interested in what else is out there. Not so much the quick game, blow off some steam, have a beer, go to bed. I'm finding myself playing the Far Cries, the Starfields, the Civilization, So that's what I'm going to be doing. I've got a little bit of streaming stuff to finish up for us, but that'll be about it for me. 3 days, my friend. Hot dogs, hamburgers, beer, gaming, sleep, or all of the above.
I'm going to try and do all of the above if I can squeeze it in. I right after this, I got to do some editing for this pod, and then my daughters have a Girl Scout thing where they'll have pizza. So I'll start off with pizza this weekend.
That's a good way to start.
I think you can't go wrong with a slice of pizza. I was mentioning to you that I'm also a little bit tired because I was up like an idiot playing last night. I fell asleep around 10 o'clock, woke back up, had a little bit of energy, thought I'd, possibly finish one level. Ended up finishing about 3, kept me up to about 1 in the morning with also the Lenovo Legion Go S, again, another handheld. So I'm going to be probably playing that. I'm going to download Claire Expedition because that just came out. I've been wanting to play that as well. Like I said, turn-based RPG. That'll be the next game. So I'm trying to wrap up South of Midnight, which again, I would suggest a lot of people try out. It's really cool, fun, folklorish type of game, action adventure. And then, doing some grocery shopping, doing some cleaning, some necessary cleaning. I don't know about you, but I just feel good after I've cleaned the house and I can just sit down at that point and play, which again, doesn't really happen. I clean the house and then my kids come in like a hurricane and make it messy again. But for that brief, I have the storm where it's very clean and they haven't torn it apart. That's where I can rest and be like, this is fun. And I'll try and play some games in between that. Again, if I can, because my birthday is next week, Wednesday.
What day? Wednesday? Okay.
28th, whatever the date 28th is. I might be celebrating it this weekend. So maybe I can try and convince my family to go see a movie that I want to see. And maybe I can, be indoors because it's hot here in Florida. So if I can get indoors to watch a movie, maybe I can't take them to go see it, but maybe they'll let me go see it by myself. If I can go see Sinners, I've been trying to see that. If not, maybe
he's reaching, folks. He wants to
I'm
by himself.
The idea is to shoot as far, as for the furthest thing, because when you get to negotiations, you might find yourself somewhere nice in the middle. If you ask for the bare minimum and you start negotiating from that point, you've already lost. So I'm asking for the moon, and hopefully I'll land somewhere in the clouds. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and anybody else in between for listening with us. We appreciate your time. Again, thank you for all the veterans out there who have made this possible. We want you all to have a great weekend if possible. If not, have the best to your ability. We will see you again next week. Take care and be nice to one another this weekend, at least for this weekend.
Take care, everybody.
Oh, Microsoft, you light our screens.